Welcome back to the dialogue. Real talk, real people. We are talking with Mayor Butts, our Inglewood's Mayor Butts tonight, who's dropping some knowledge and he's giving us some exclusive. This is some information he has not said publicly. We are getting to know him uh, up close and personal, and really getting to enjoy learning more about Mayor, because you have an absolutely fantastic story. Some of the stuff that you've been able to accomplish. I mean, during the commercial break, we were talking about just the evolution of your political relationships. How have they changed? Who's calling you now?
Well, the interesting thing is that in the beginning, when I was in Inglewood, first of all, nobody called, nobody came, nobody visited, and you didn't get invited anywhere. Now, everybody wants me to come. The different associations, government associations, want me to come speak and tell the Inglewood story. Um, Different professional organizations want me to come speak and tell the Inglewood story. The Greater LA Chamber of Commerce, they have a committee put together for the Super Bowl. They came to Inglewood to meet. It would These kind of things, they just didn't happen
And you freaked out the office,
before.
the conference room. The conference room is dope.
Well,
The conference room is dope. And I told you that you have a book in you. You have a couple of books in you. You know you're gonna have to write a book.
well, you got to look like you are. And so when you talked about that branding issue, we brand ourselves with uh, superior performance, superior results, and then we try to shape the look of the city so that
Okay.
it fits what we are.
Fantastic. And I hear a caller on the line. And if you are calling to listen to the show, please hang up and just listen on your browser. But if you do have a question, I'm going to ask you to ask your comment or your question now. Hello, caller. Are you there?
Yes.
Hi. Welcome to the dialogue. You have a comment or question for Mayor Butts?
I do. How are you, Mayor Butts? My name's Dwayne. I'm actually Inglewood graduate myself, class of '98. Also an actor. I did a film called The Wood way back when.
Yay. Absolutely. I love the
Yeah,
wood.
yeah. So I'm also a community member in the city of Inglewood. I had a couple questions. First of all, brother, I appreciate you being our mayor, and it's always good to see a brother in office, especially one that lives in the community, trying to do some things for the community. I got two questions for you. One of which is very simple. Do you plan on going any further as it goes to political office?
You don't know how many times I'm asked that question, and it's just like I was telling Star before. Um, e- I've never ended up doing one thing I plan to do. Whatever I'm into it. And right now, I'm into Inglewood,
I
and
love it.
this is all I can see. This is all I breathe. There's no need to think about doing something else because we have so much left to do that is great here. So I don't have any aspirations to do anything but the best I can
And
for
it's a
the
pretty good
city.
spot right now too.
Yeah, and I would say that as mayor's spots go, this is probably a pretty good one now.
Absolutely. You had another question?
Yeah, last question, I guess not to take up too much of your time, but you mentioned earlier in conversation when you were part of the Inglewood Police Department that you helped out with the big drug screen and making over 800, 900 arrests. I was just curious, that in our community there's a huge problem with drugs and alcohol. There's abuse that happens. And a lot of people that are arrested wind up in a system that doesn't actually fix their addiction or anything, but actually causes more problems when they have to deal with tickets and arrests and things of that nature. Now, some are warranted, I get that. But I wonder, in those arrests, did it lead to the larger arrests? Because, I mean, we all know that Tyrone doesn't own a boat or any planes to bring what is being sold in our neighborhoods to our neighborhoods.
Hmm.
So that even though these are the guys that are catching the charges, being put away and getting all types of gang enhancements and RICO law types of deals, these aren't the people that are actually flooding our community with these drugs. They're just the end game. And I
Right.
believe, we kind of stack our numbers with that. But wondering, does that even lead to the larger, lack of a better term, the Escobar arrests that we're
The,
looking for to stop this in our
that's
community?
really an excellent question. What was the caller's name again?
You said
I'm
Dwayne?
sorry?
What's your
Yeah,
name?
Dwayne.
Dwayne.
Dwayne,
Dwayne
you
Finley,
ask
yes,
an
sir.
excellent question, and again, everything depends on context. Now, back then, that was '86, that was the '80s, that was the crack cocaine wars, and so you're right. Cocaine powder was flooded into our communities. It was rocked up into crack, and so our
Which
basic
also carried a heavier charge
yeah,
than softer
yeah,
cocaine,
absolutely.
correct?
But our focus was on the violence that those turf wars created for the neighborhoods. We had mothers that would not let their children come out to play after 5 o'clock because of the drug activity.
Mm.
We had high murder rates because of the rival drug activity. So we focused on that, but we did carry it further up to the bigger level suppliers. Now, I didn't have that much time after that in Inglewood, but when I got to Santa Monica, we definitely did go up the chain, and we seized about $10 million in assets from the higher level dealers and suppliers, and we used that to fund things like our IT infrastructure, our
Nice.
communications division, things like that, all kinds of public safety measures. So you're right, there are bigger fish to be fried, but at the street level, people have to live. And so your first focus has to be crime is like mercury. There's always going to be crime, and there's probably always going to be some level of drug sales. And it's like mercury. We squeeze it, it goes someplace else. Our objective in Inglewood and Santa Monica was always to squeeze it so it wasn't there where we are.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much for your question, Dwayne,
Oh, thank you.
and for
Thank
your
you.
contribution to the wood. I love that movie.
Appreciate it. Yeah, I'm Inglewood native, trying to keep it going, support all
All
our
right
people.
now. Keep
Fan-
the
Hear
wood.
what you guys are doing.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your call. Richard, do we still have another caller? Hi, caller. You're on with Mayor Butts. Do you have a comment or question? There's
Yes, I do. Can you guys hear me?
Hi, yes. Hi, welcome to the dialogue. You have a question for Mayor Butts?
Yes, I do. I wanted to ask Mayor Butts, being that he is a black man actually in leadership, and sometimes I know within our own culture, we're critical of most of our people who are in leadership. So, a lot of slander and things come attached to his name at times. I'm pretty sure that he's come across with certain things on the internet. So how do you create the perfect balance of, or how do you balance those things out without losing, say, your integrity or your dignity towards just being the most effective leader that you can, and also have, those type of situations created any obstacles in your particular role of leadership?
Okay, first of all, no one has the capacity to take your dignity from you unless you don't believe that you're worthy of dignity in the first place. Secondly, you're always going to have people that are going to seize upon whether they're tragedies in your life, whether they be personal, interpersonal, familial, and they will attempt to use that to demean you. And every great person, and I'm not saying I'm a great person, but I looked at examples of great people, has had tragedies in their life. And so it's just, it's an absurdity to even focus on anything that anyone sees on the internet. I say, judge me by my results, judge me by my words, and see if I follow through on what I say.
Accountability.
Accountability.
You're not afraid to be held accountable.
I've relished accountability in every position I've ever had, and I've delivered.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your caller. Do you have any more callers, Richard? Okay, thank you so much. Interesting, aspect on just being in your position and dealing with the community opposition. Were there any opposition? Were there any negative feedback, or in terms of your revitalization efforts and or plans?
Let me tell you something.
Were there NIMBYs? Did you get some NIMBYs?
When you come into a situation that I will tell you from a fiscal, social orientation perspective that is what I considered completely dysfunctional. When I came back here from Santa Monica and the airport, which is Los Angeles, I asked myself after the first two council meetings, I said, was it like this when I left? And I wondered, I said, what happened here?
Right.
And so honestly, one of my first orientations was, I says, we have to change the dialogue here to, let's be honest about what our problems are. Let's talk about what our pathways to the future are. And let's talk about the sacrifices that we're all going to have to make to get to a stabilized future where we can even attract other businesses or entertainment.
Okay.
And so that was the big thing for me. I've always been a a strategic, focused person. I compartmentalize well, and that you had to compartmentalize very well, not to let all the rhetoric get to you and throw you off.
Mhm.
And so, I developed objectives, and some are more political objectives. We needed different council people in two of the seats, and we worked on that. And we needed to. Give me an example. We had 3 tree trimmers. We trimmed about 1,200 trees a year. We have 19,000 trees in the Inglewood inventory. That meant whether you need it or not, every 20 years we trim your tree. That's ridiculous.
Mhm.
So we engaged in a public-private partnership. Now we trim 6,000 trees a year. We reassigned those employees to the parks where they could, do some more good in keeping our parks clean. We outsourced or public-private partnership our parking control operation where the vendor hired as many of our people as were employable, and we more than.
And what happened to the trees with the shuttle that were removed?
Oh, we replaced them with palm trees.
Okay.
That was for free.
Okay.
And street sweepers. We had 2 street sweepers, 2 machines that were over 35 years old, and 2 street sweeping personnel. One of the street sweeping machines was broken at all times, and so we had 1 street sweeper for 9 square miles. And fortunately, one of the street sweeping people was always off injured, so we had a perfect symbiosis between equipment and personnel. It was like somebody planned it. But so now we have 5 street sweepers. We
Nice.
contract out for the service. And so I focused on improving services first, and then we cut our deal with Madison Square Garden, and that was the jump-off point for the new Englewood.
Absolutely. And we're going to talk more in detail about the whole revitalization and the forum. But I did want to ask you, because I want to talk a little bit, you were the driving force behind the renovation of the forum. What was your decision to go after that initially?
Well,
what inspired you?
remember when I before I was even working in Inglewood, Jack King Cook built the forum, and my father would take us to the Coliseum to see the Rams, Sports Arena to see the Lakers. And then when the Jack King Cook built the forum, then I attended the forum while I was in high school.
Mhm.
So my first concert there, Sly and the Family Stone.
Sly and the Family
Sly and the
Stone.
Family Stone. And so then while I was there, I was there for the three-peat Showtime Lakers, and the track used to draw 38 to 41,000 people a day. So between 15,658 coming out of the forum and 38,000 people coming out of the track, we had 50,000 people, sometimes 3 or 4 days a week in Inglewood. It was jumping.
It was.
And that's what I remembered. I also learned in Santa Monica, when I came to Santa Monica, they really couldn't get 3rd Street to take off because they had the problems with drugs, gangs, and the homeless management situation. And by the time I left Santa
3rd
Monica,
Street is popping.
it was an international tourist destination. And so if I learned anything from my time in Inglewood, in Santa Monica, and in LA, was that you need people and cars if you're going to be a successful city.
Is that what?
And you need people and cars to be in your city. And the best way to get people and cars in your city is to have an entertainment base. And
I'm excited next week to talk about what you're going to do on Market Street. And
I've got lots of plans.
And all that. The Rams. You obviously grew up. You were a fan. What happened on Monday night with the 49ers? What happened?
Come on.
Ooh, wait.
Come on.
I'm trying to root for the Rams. What happened? Were you at the game?
No, of course not. Star, look, let me tell you something. If you can give me that one bad day out of the last 2.5 years it took us to get the Rams here, I'll take that bad day and let it go.
I'm rooting for them.
Okay.
I am rooting for them.
Hey.
Blip
on the oscilloscope, okay?
It's a blip.
It's a
Gonna
blip.
take
I've
a minute to
watched.
get it
Wait, no,
together.
I've been watching Hard Knocks. I've been following them.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I'm going to
It
be
takes
a
a minute.
fan. I'm going to get a
That's
T-shirt.
right.
I'm going to drink the LA Rams juice.
Hey,
You know what I'm
go
saying?
Rams.
Go Rams. You want to
I
say?
have a question off topic. When do you sleep?
I know. And how do you manage your stress? That's what I was going to say.
Well, I try to get to sleep by 9:30 every night. I wake up about 12:30. Like I told you, I read about 17 papers on the internet. I go back to sleep. Try to get no later than 2:30. Sleep till about 6. Get up at the gym by 6:30. Go work out. Try to get to the office by 7:30, quarter to 8. Start the day and start all over again.
You're a spiritual man?
Very spiritual man. Matter of fact, raised in Home United Methodist Church, but it's a little church, a satellite that 64th and 67th and 4th Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, I ran into the pastor that was there that did my father's funeral service at the 110th anniversary of Inglewood Park Cemetery last week.
Wow.
She was there, and we took a picture together.
Fantastic. Back to the Rams. What was that like with meeting Stan Kroenke? How did that even go down?
That was a very interesting story. Actually, I had talked to Mark Davis after I had about 12 months in office about the potentiality of them purchasing 60 acres that was owned by Walmart and possibly partnering with Stockbridge International, which had the Hollywood Park Tomorrow project with Wilson Meany. But, it just couldn't come together. You have to have three things to get a football team. You got to have, one, an owner wants to be here. Two, you have to have the financing. Three, you have to have the right size site. And fourth, and most important, you got to get 75% of the owners to vote to let that team move.
Mm-hmm.
And those elements weren't there. Then one day I'm in my office, I get a call from a guy that owned a restaurant in Santa Monica that was a good friend of Stan Kroenke. And he says, Stan Kroenke's in town. He'd like to talk to you if you had some time. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't know who Stan Kroenke was. I said, who's Stan Kroenke? And I Googled him, and I saw, owns the Rams, the Arsenal, the Denver Nuggets.
So you weren't even thinking about
Denver
a football
Nuggets.
team or nothing prior to that call?
I wasn't thinking about football at that moment
Okay.
because the the Raiders thing had come and gone.
Okay.
And then he came, and what could have been a 15-minute meeting ended up being 2 hours and 15 minutes, and we basically agreed on a vision that ended up with them in a joint venture with Stockbridge Capital and Wilson Meany Associates to turn that 298 total parcel into a sports entertainment mecca. And out of that meeting, we got busy. And
So you had no idea what that meeting was going to...
I had there was no plan for that meeting to occur. I did want football, but not football by itself.
Okay.
We wanted football with a mixed use that would be in play 365 days a year.
Okay.
Most places that build football stadiums, they do the following. One, the city contributes between 50 and 57% of stadium costs. A lot of times they run a joint powers authority where the city ends up being responsible for the maintenance, repairs, and renovation of the stadium when the time comes.
Okay.
And so now you're always chasing your money because you've bonded. You got to hope that ticket tax, sales taxes from things that are sold in the venue, and parking taxes equate to the payment on the bonds.
Okay.
And then you hope that ancillary development now makes money for your city. Doesn't always work out that way.
Mm-hmm.
Our deal's a little different.
I know you struck something different.
Ours is 100% developer finance, including the public portions, the roadways, the sewer systems. We get 4 parks out of the deal. This is unheard of.
I know. How did you open up your mouth to ask for that?
Well, nobody
you just
did.
like, this is what I want. You want to come to my city? This is what we're gonna do.
But here's what we had to offer. We had the largest contiguous block of open land in urban Southern California. We're 2.5 miles away from one of the busiest Category X airports in the country. We were right in the middle, the epicenter of 4 freeways. And the weather's so good here that good and well, every time it rains, you got to go buy a new umbrella because you don't remember what you did with the umbrella the last time it rained, right?
That is true.
And I said, you could build a stadium anywhere. You're a multi-billionaire, you're a developer, and you could build a stadium anywhere you want. I said, but only here is it big enough for you to have Kroenkeville.
With that being said, it's one of the nicest looking stadiums that I've seen. I was at a real estate conference, and they're talking about how nice it is, how it's sunk into the earth so that we can still have the planes fly over and everything. But one of the questions I wanted to ask, and a lot of people have been asking me, is what do you see this effect with the Rams doing for residents? How do you see it playing out?
Well, first of all, if I'm going to finish the story with Stan Kroenke, Stan Kroenke is all in for the city of Inglewood.
Mm.
They have already started Rams Play 60, where they go to the high schools and put on exercise clinics for the kids. They've already went to Monroe Middle School and built a playground for them. Stan Kroenke is a man of his word, a gentleman, and he's a partner to the city. And so for him to go all in, finance everything. The only time that we pay back for any of the public things that he pays for us is in a year where the city makes more than $25 million in total revenues from the development. So what does that mean in simple terms? If we make 24 million, we pay nothing that year. We make 27 million. After we count our money, we give them 3 million towards what they spent for us. That's the opposite model from all other stadium ventures.
So have other mayors reached out to you? And like, how'd you do that?
Over there?
Right, what's up? Can we have coffee?
Well, I do talk a lot more to my peers, and we have a lot of discussions. But you have to remember, a team moves, I don't know, once or twice in a generation. Yeah. You have a not the same team either. Once or twice in a generation. And it was 21 years since the Rams left Anaheim.
So as a fan growing up, you must be so proud to have been the vehicle to get them to come back home.
The thing I'm most proud of is that my father, and I know that he knows that his son was involved in bringing the Rams back to Southern California. And so there's no better feeling than that.
And I'm sure that's more than what you want your legacy to be, but that is an absolutely fantastic feather to have in your hat.
Right. No, but like you said, my legacy is people in Inglewood are proud to say they live in Inglewood.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to ask you just some personal questions, just about some of the things that are happening in terms of race relations in America, and especially with black men, and the police brutality and things of that nature. What are your thoughts on the Black Lives Matter movement and the conversation around police brutality, even from the presidential election space?
I gotta say, wow, do you know how interwoven complex that question is?
Know.
Okay, it isn't a case of what do I think of Black Lives Matter, what do I think of police use of force. Here are the bigger issues. The bigger issues are this. First of all, since the advent of cell phone cameras, there's more instantaneous visible awareness of questionable police conduct.
Okay.
Back in the day, even before I was a policeman, police did whatever they did with impunity. There were good policemen. 92% of policemen are good people, but it depends on the culture of the organization that they're raised in. Nice. And you need to hear this.
Right.
That indoctrination starts in the academy. And so it depends on how you are raised to believe what are your obligations to the people you police, what are the limits of your behavior even when you're dealing with people that are criminals, and are you a professional organization? And I would say that you'll see that the most egregious incidents that happen for a few reasons. One, there's a negative police culture.
Okay.
The leaders believe that police can behave in egregious manner, and they do. Two, poor training. Officers are not properly trained. They don't understand the use of cover and concealment, patience, not doing things to create their own apprehension.
What about cultural sensitivity or lack of training in cultural sensitivity?
Well, hold on a second. That's kind of gets towards the end. Okay, and then there are some people that just are not fit to be police officers, and they're malicious people.
Okay.
And hopefully they're weeded out. But when you talk about cultural sensitivity, you tell me what person, and this is the way I would do it, if you'd have misconduct where someone was rude to someone, and ordinarily they'd get a written reprimand, and their supervisor talked to them, and that'd be the end of it. But when me in Santa Monica, you had to come and see the chief.
Mm.
And I'd ask you, I'd say, well, let me ask you this. And they'd have a million reasons why. Well, they said this and I said that. I said, let me ask you this. If that was your mother, your brother, your uncle, your grandfather, or your cousin, would you have wanted them treated the way you treated that person?
Mm.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And there would be silence.
Mm.
And I say, this is the last time we're having this conversation.
Nice.
So it's so much, people try to make it more difficult than it is.
Okay.
This is about police leadership, police culture, accountability for behavior. And there are certain things that anyone does in any profession that disqualifies them for future employment.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem is that sometimes chiefs feel their position is more to protect the reputation of the agency than it is to send the message that unfortunately what you did disqualified you from future employment.
Okay. And just in terms of the racial climate, a lot of people, a lot of focus or conversations around Colin Kaepernick, right, and his protest of the national anthem. What do you think about, the athletes or his position in protesting the anthem and the other athletes that are following in suit?
Well, okay. Hear me on this.
Okay. You got the mic?
People that play professional basketball, professional baseball, football, hockey, they receive millions of dollars to play a game. They're not receiving that money to play a game. They receive that money because they're entertainers.
Okay.
And the reason they get that kind of money is because advertisers pay for entertainers. It's my belief that if you're in the realm of entertainment, then you don't do things to diminish the product of the people that employ you.
Okay.
You definitely are entitled to your beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
But in that venue, I don't think that is the venue. I think the venue, if you really want to put your money where your mouth is, then donate to organizations that you feel combat the injustices that you see in society. While I may agree with everything that Colin Kaepernick feels about the disparities in treatment in the country when you're being paid as an entertainer, and I do believe he was on the clock.
Okay.
That is not the place.
What do you think, Odessa?
I think he sparked a nerve that needed to be sparked.
Okay.
I may not, I stand for the anthem. That's my own personal view. But I think the one good thing that has come from it is that it has put a national spotlight on some of the issues that we have had. I mean, I grew up afraid to go to Culver City because every time I was in Culver City, I had issues. And I'm 6'9", so I don't know what profile I fit.
Right.
But I can understand both sides of the party. And for me, like I said, I like that he struck a nerve that has got the conversation started.
Okay. And we're coming to the end of the hour.
May I comment on that?
Of course.
If some of the unnecessary deaths that have occurred don't strike a nerve, how does not standing for the national anthem do more to raise consciousness? Do you get what I'm saying?
I think it's just the media, just all the hype around it. Do you know what I
Sadly,
mean?
it seems that people are more concerned about an athlete than about 20 people getting shot in a theater.
Well, that says a lot to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I just want to, throw the mic to you and ask the mayor our last question for our time. It went by fast, huh?
It sure did.
That's because we enjoying you. Go ahead. Anything you want to ask him?
No, I just my biggest question is where do you see Inglewood in the next 10 years? What is the biggest change you see coming?
Well, we are planning Inglewood in a manner so that we grow synergistically. And what do I mean by that? That we intend to build different shopping and entertainment districts and housing districts that are interlaced and complement with each other as opposed to compete with one another. I see Prairie Boulevard between Century and Imperial being totally bought up by investment consortiums and completely renovated. The same way for Century west of Prairie all the way to La Cienega, I see Inglewood within 7 years looking more like South Beach, Miami than Inglewood today.
Do you think it'll still be majority black? It's not even majority black now.
Well, we're almost majority black, but the point is, see, and everybody focuses more on
because I was going to ask you, we're going to talk about that next week about gentrification and the negative connotation around it.
The reality is that wealthier cities are more diverse than either poor cities or extremely wealthy cities. I mean, the only way that black people are going to leave Inglewood is if they sell their houses.
And we're going to be talking about that next week. We're going to be talking about gentrification.
So come on.
Exactly.
And there's nobody coming out here with an Uzi and says, you got to sell me your house. So stick around. The
Absolutely.
Best is yet
Don't
to come.
sell. Do you know what I mean? Matter of fact, we should have been investing, when we even heard that the train was coming in the first place and started buying up. But it is a lesson.
Don't move, improve.
You know what I mean? So in terms of this, and we're going to talk about this more next week, but in terms of our generation and having a paradigm shift as it relates to gentrification, because, my argument is that's something not to protest, but to capitalize on. Mm-hmm. And so there needs to be this shift in the conversation when it comes to revitalizing our community, because we do leave.
And we
do sell.
Have to define that word gentrification.
Absolutely.
Because it's almost used synonymously to say this is when whites
move black people out. When it is just a process of renewal that does not have any color.
It's a social economic
Absolutely.
term. All right.
Absolutely. And I'm in total agreement. Matter of fact, I'm doing a TEDx talk, Crenshaw, on gentrification for the next generation, October 8th. I'll be telling you more about it. And that is my argument, is that when you see the same train is going to go through Koreatown, it's going to go through a lot of those other communities where there may be some residents that get displaced, but the culture and the economics are not going to change. Mm-hmm. But when it comes through the black community, gentrification is defined as an urban experience or a displacement of black people. But that's because, one, you said we leave and we sell to the highest bidder, and that highest bidder may not be black. Do you know what I'm saying?
It's one of those things where I tell people, like, look at Venice Beach. Those people, a lot of those hippies there, that property wasn't that expensive. And those people held on, and now they're land rich. I mean, you're a millionaire by owning a house.
So next week we talk about the revitalization of Inglewood. We're going to talk about it from an economic development strategy and an entrepreneurship strategy, and it's something for us to have invested in. And gentrification, just like the recession, is cyclical. Real estate is a cyclical economy. It's going to happen again.
You must be a business major.
You must be. I must be a daughter of Chuck Quarles of the Bedford Group. And it's something for us to capitalize on. We are products of the civil rights movement. We don't have some of the same barriers nor the emotional connection to gentrification. So it's something for us to invest in and to capitalize in and to educate ourselves on recreating Black Wall Streets for the next generation. We have to own. We cannot sell. Do not sell. You stay in your community and you see the value in it. In Inglewood, we got a billionaire investing in Inglewood.
We actually have a $1 billion corporation. We have a billionaire in Stan Kroenke. And don't be surprised if there's not a third billionaire within the next year.
And we have a black mayor that's on point. That is on point and has an agenda and is not afraid to be held accountable. Thank you so much. I have enjoyed you so much.
Star, I enjoyed this.
And I can't wait till we talk about the redevelopment. Thank you for your time. Thank you so much, Odessa.
Thanks for having me.
And make sure you tune in next week when we continue our conversation with Mayor Butts. And we're going to talk specifically about the revitalization of Inglewood. And it is something for us to capitalize on as a generation and to be involved in and to invest in our communities. Thank you for tuning in for our series on the new Inglewood. We are going to continue next week. We're talking about revitalizing the wood. I'm your host, Starlet Quarles, signing off as my mama's child and my daddy's baby girl. Until next week, God bless you.
Thank you for tuning in to LA Talk Live, reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we're more than just talk. Stay tuned.